everyone. Welcome to Epic Kids Online. I'm teacher Ashley, and I'm super excited to be with you today. Today is a very special Sunday because it's the first Sunday of Advent. What is Advent, you ask? Well, Advent is based on a Latin word that means arrival, and it's a 4-week period of time when we prepare our hearts to celebrate the birth of Jesus at Christmas. Many Christians all over the world celebrate Advent by lighting candles in an Advent wreath. Each candle represents a different theme. The evergreen branches of the Advent wreath, which you can see back here, symbolize the never-ending love of God, and the light of the candles symbolizes Jesus is the light of the world. This week, we are going to light the candle of hope. What are some of the things that you hope for? The Israelites hoped for and waited for many years for the Messiah, who the prophets foretold would come. Their kingdom of Israel had been conquered by other nations, and they longed for a king and a rescuer. God sent prophets to remind them that he would take care of them. How do you think the Israelites felt about waiting for the Messiah for so many years? I think I would start to feel discouraged after such a long time with no answer. The prophet Isaiah spoke hope about the Messiah in this passage of the Bible. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Isaiah 9:6. As we learn more about the word hope, let's make an ornament for our Christmas trees this year. You can go to Epic Families page on the website and print out the Advent Ornaments page so you can decorate them at home. We're going to start this week with the Hope ornament, and you can cut it out and decorate it with whatever craft supplies you have at home. We have some glitter or some markers, but you might have paints or other things that you have at your disposal. After ornament dries and is all set to go, you can punch a hole in the middle of it like this, run a piece of string through, and then hang it on your tree. And in future weeks, we will decorate other ornaments together. I hope you have a good time decorating everything at home. Let's continue our lesson together as we sing a worship song and hear a story of hope from our friends at the Bible Project.
What if I'm looking for rivers when the desert is right where you are? And while I am waiting for wonders, you're holding my heart. Lord, when the light isn't here yet, and it's so hard to find where you are, I hold on to you while you teach me to see in the dark. This is my great hope. You are a great God, pouring out great love over me. This is my great hope. God, you are faithful, and what you have been, you will always be. You are my joy in the journey. You are always my reason to sing, turning the ashes to beauty. You're redeeming everything. This is my great hope. You are a great God, pouring out great love over me. Yes, this is my great hope. God, you are faithful, and what you have been, you will The suffering will soon be only a memory, and all of this mourning will turn into dancing. Healing is coming, songs of rejoicing. You are restoring my soul. This I know, yes I know, this is my great hope. God, you are faithful, and what you have been, you will always be. Yes, and this is my great hope. You are a great God, pouring out great love over me. Yes, you are, yes, you are. And this is my great hope. Oh God, you are faithful, and what you have been, you will always be.
So let's say you want to describe the feeling of anticipating a future that's better than the present. You might be giddy or excited or maybe unsure, but most of us know that experience. We call it hope. It's a state of anticipation, and it's crucial for healthy human existence. And it's a really important concept in the Bible. In fact, there are many words for hope in the ancient languages of the Bible, and they're all fascinating. In the Old Testament, there are two main Hebrew words translated as hope. The first is yachal, which means simply to wait for. Like in the story of Noah and the ark, as the flood waters recede, Noah had to yachal for weeks. The other Hebrew word is kavah, which also means to wait. It's related to the Hebrew word kav, which means cord. When you pull a kav tight, you produce a state of tension until there's release. That's kavah, the feeling of tension and expectation while you wait for something to happen. The prophet Isaiah depicts God as a farmer who plants vines and kavahs for good grapes. Or the prophet Micah talks about farmers who both kavah and yachal for morning dew to give moisture to the land. So in biblical Hebrew, hope is about waiting or expectation. But waiting for what? In the period of Israel's prophets, as the nation was sinking into self-destruction, Isaiah said, "At this moment, the Lord's hiding his face from Israel, so I will kavah for him." The only hope Isaiah had in those dark days was the hope for God himself. You find this same notion of hope all over the book of Psalms, where these words appear over 40 times. In almost every case, what people are waiting for is God. Like in Psalm 130, the poet cries out from a pit of despair, "I kavah for the Lord, let Israel yachal for the Lord, because he's loyal and will redeem Israel from its sins." Biblical hope is based on a person, which makes it different from optimism. Optimism is about choosing to see in any situation how circumstances could work out for the best. But biblical hope is not focused on circumstances. In fact, hopeful people in the Bible often recognize there's no evidence things will get better, but you choose hope anyway. Like the prophet Hosea, he lived in a dark time when Israel was being oppressed by foreign empires, and he chose hope when he said God could turn this valley of trouble into a door of hope, like the day when Israel came up from the land of Egypt. God had surprised his people with redemption back in the days of the Exodus, and he could do so again. So it's God's past faithfulness that motivates hope for the future. You look forward by looking backward, trusting in nothing other than God's character. It's like the poet of Psalm 39 who says, "And now, O Lord, what else can I kavah for? You are my yachal." In the New Testament, the earliest followers of Jesus cultivated this similar habit of hope. They believed that Jesus' life, death, and resurrection was God's surprising response to our slavery to evil and death. The empty tomb opened up a new door of hope, and they used the Greek word elpis to describe this anticipation. The Apostle Peter said that Jesus' resurrection opened up a living hope, that people can be reborn, to become new and different kinds of humans. More than once, the Apostle Paul says the good news about Jesus announces the elpis of glory. In both cases, this elpis is based on a person, the risen Jesus, who has overcome death. And this hope wasn't just for humans. The apostles believed that what happened to Jesus in the resurrection was a foretaste of what God had planned for the whole universe. In Paul's words, it's a hope that creation itself will be liberated from slavery to corruption into freedom when God's children are glorified. So Christian hope is bold, waiting for humanity and the whole universe to be rescued from evil and death. And some would say it's crazy, and maybe it is. But biblical hope isn't optimism based on the odds. It's a choice to wait for God to bring about a future that's as surprising as a crucified man rising from the dead. Christian hope looks back to the risen Jesus in order to look forward. And so we wait. That's what the biblical words for hope are all about.
Waiting can be so hard sometimes, right? I'm not a very patient person, and sometimes I get really frustrated when things don't happen as quickly as I'd like them to. But when I remember the hope I have in Jesus, and I ask God for strength and perspective, waiting definitely becomes easier. Sometimes when I'm waiting for something special, I like to bake a sweet treat to keep my hands busy and my mind occupied. Around this time of year, I love to make Christmas cookies. What's your favorite kind of cookie? Gingerbread cookies are one of my very favorites. And I'm just finishing up preparing a batch of these Swedish spice cookies. So we're gonna roll out the dough together and cut a beautiful snowflake out of them. And you can make whatever kind of cookies your family enjoys eating. I think in my family it's hard because we all like eating everything. So every Christmas we just bake a bunch of cookies. And it's nice when you have people around to share them with. Need a little flour. With any kind of rolled cookie, you don't want the dough to be too thick because otherwise your cookies will take a really long time to bake and they won't get crunchy. So I'm trying to get at least half of this dough pretty thin. There we go. And we can use our cutter to cut out some snowflakes. I did not put enough flour down. Let me try another one. There we go. Now we have our beautiful snowflake that we can put on our cookie sheet. While we wait for our cookies to bake, let's read some encouraging verses from the book of Revelation, which is the very last book in the Bible. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them, and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who is seated on the throne said, "I'm making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children." Revelation 21, 1-7. In this passage, we learn that Jesus will come again someday, and that when he does, all things will be made new. There will be no more tears or suffering. In this season of Advent, we not only get to celebrate Jesus being born, but we also prepare ourselves for Jesus to come again. This week, I'd encourage you to think about ways you can find hope in Jesus and share your hope for the future with other people around you. Let's light the hope candle together and pray. Dear God, you give us hope we can rest our faith on. You are holy and you're full of love and mercy and grace. Thank you so much for giving us your hope and your guidance as we place our faith in you. Help us to look for our hope and to wait patiently for you even when it's hard. And look forward to all that you have in store for our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks so much for joining us. As we go, we have a special treat today. Teacher Aniki is going to read one of her favorite Christmas picture books to us. I hope you have a great first week of Advent, and we'll see you next time on Epic Kids Online.
Hello and welcome to the Diggy Home. I'm Teacher Aniki, and I have the great pleasure of introducing to you some of our favorite Advent stories that we read as a family. Tonight we get a chance to read to you a story called Waiting for Christmas. It's written by Kathleen Long Bostrom, and I can't wait to share it with you. So grab a blanket or maybe a stuffy and snuggle up and get a chance to hear this story. Mama, how many days till Christmas? Gerhard asked. As soon as it is December, we'll start to count down the days. Good things are worth waiting for, Gerhard, replied Mama. But it's hard to wait, Gerhard complained. I know, his mother said. But if you keep busy, the time will pass more quickly. Now, run and take this bread and cheese to your papa. Gerhard's father was the pastor of their church. He was starting to work longer hours to get everything ready for Christmas. Gerhard hurried across the town square with his father's supper. Oh, this looks like fun. He's sliding along a sled, listening to the music. A shop window filled with amazing Christmas treats caught his eye. He had never seen such a fantastic display. Cakes, cookies, and candies of all shapes and sizes were laid out around a small Christmas tree. That looks yummy. He ran on and burst through the front door of the church. Papa, Papa, have you seen the shop full of Christmas sweets? I can't wait to see what special treats Oma and Opa will bring me this year. Oh, even baby Jesus had to wait for his first Christmas gifts, Papa said. Gerhard suddenly stood still. Really? He asked. Papa smiled. Oh, yes. 2 or 3 years after Jesus was born, the wise men brought their gifts to him. He waited 2 or 3 years? Gerhard's eyes opened wide. I could never wait that long. Advent begins this Sunday, he said. Then you may start counting down the days until Christmas. Until then, we have much to do to prepare for Jesus' birth. Mama and I need your help if we are to be ready. I bet Gerhard will be a good helper. When Gerhard returned home, Mama was making Lebkuchen, a special Christmas cookie. He helped measure the sugared fruits and added them to the dough. The colorful fruits made him think about the special treats his grandparents would be bringing for Christmas. We have to let the dough set overnight before we can bake these, said his mother. I have to wait for cookies too? Gerhard asked. Mama kissed the top of Gerhard's head. It takes a long time to make Lebkuchen before it is ready to be eaten. Cookies. Makes me hungry for them, huh? The next day, the dough was ready to be baked into delicious cookies. Gerhard, I think Papa needs help decorating the church today. But Mama, I want to help you bake cookies, said Gerhard. Mama smiled, a twinkle in her eye. Not today, my little son. Today you need to help your Papa. Gerhard brought in pine branches to decorate the windows and pews of the church. He helped tie them together. The pine smelled wonderful. Then he placed the tall white candles in the windows and on the altar. These would be lit on Christmas Eve. Though his hands were busy, Gerhard couldn't stop thinking about all the fun he would have on Christmas Day. Later that afternoon, when Gerhard returned home, the whole house smelled of delicious spices and honey. Mama, may I have a cookie now? They smell so good. Not yet, Mama replied. The cookies must be placed in a tin box and left for a few weeks before they'll be ready to eat. Weeks? Cried Gerhard. For now, you could draw the chalk lines on our door, she said. That will help you count the days of Advent. Draw 24 lines. Starting tomorrow, you may erase one line each night before you go to bed. When all the lines are gone, it will be Christmas Eve. 24 days. That's a long time, Gerhard said. Gerhard wondered if Christmas would ever arrive. The first day of Advent finally arrived. Gerhard, I have a surprise for you that may make it easier to wait for Christmas, said Mama. What is it, Mama? Please tell me. She pointed to the dining room table. Something was underneath the tablecloth. Gerhard lifted a corner and peeked underneath. Oh, Mama, he squealed in delight. Vibla, my favorite cookie. There is one cookie for every day of December until Christmas, she explained. After supper, you may have one cookie every evening until Christmas Eve. This should make the waiting sweeter. Thank you, Mama. Gerhard gave her a big hug. That night, Gerhard erased the first chalk line from the door. He untied the first Advent cookie and shared it with Mama and Papa. Was it hard for Mary and Joseph to wait for Jesus to be born? He asked Papa. Yes, he answered, but Mary and Joseph weren't the only ones. The whole world had waited thousands of years for Jesus to come. When the time finally came, the angels in heaven and on earth sang songs of joy. Someday, Jesus will come again. 1,000 years, Gerhard exclaimed. I couldn't fit that many cookies on a calendar. Papa laughed. You would need a very large calendar for that many cookies. Before going to bed, Gerhard closed his eyes and prayed. Thank you, dear God, for Mama and Papa and Oma and Opa, and for candies and treats and Christmas. But thank you most of all for Jesus. And God, help me to be patient. Amen. Gerhard snuggled down into his blankets. Christmas would come, he knew. For now, he would just have to wait. But that was all right. Some things were worth waiting for. The end. Well, I hope you enjoyed our story today, Waiting for Christmas. It's a fun one, and I know it's hard to wait for things we love so dearly. And I hope this week your waiting might be a little sweeter. Maybe you'll get a chance to bake some cookies with your family, just like Gerhard did. And I hope you'll be able to join us next week for Epic Kids Online for our second week of Advent. And in the meantime, have an amazing week. Take care. Bye-bye.